Hi, folks. I had recently posted something up in the Boss RC500 group, one of them on Facebook, and just kind of it's sort of my advice, tips, and tricks from a looper who's been using this gigging live for a few years, using the Boss RC500. Just a little background. I started doing this around, I don't know, was it 2020-ish, 2021 maybe, during COVID, really trying to get to learn how to use this thing. I had originally started it with backing tracks, using it with backing tracks, but then uh, moved on to using it specifically as a live looper. And in other words, creating everything on the spot, and creating my bass. I'm using the drums specifically from the RC500. I rarely change kits. I don't really feel the need to, and I don't know of any drummer that I've ever played with that says, "Hold on, but for this next song, I'm going to set up a totally different kit." So I don't sweat stuff like that. I think I use the live kit in the RC500, and for other lighter stuff, I switch over to like the percussion kit. But anyway, that said, here's some things I wish I would have known or tried earlier on using this as a looper. Um, and basically, it's weird. You would think you would start off kind of simple and just kind of getting more complicated and complex and things like that as you go. But what I'm finding is a lot of the times the simpler approach is the best. So really, what I'm learning is to kind of keep it more stripped down. Than trying to layer all kinds of tracks and stuff in, continually doing the verse chorus thing, which can be sometimes good and it can also be a nightmare at times, no matter how much you play with it. Doesn't It's not consistent. And it could be partly operator error, but the bottom line of it is it's not been consistent. But I still have some tracks that I set up verse chorus ahead of time, and I have everything programmed into the looper that way. But that said, I'm not using verse chorus as much as I used to, and I'm not sweating adding bass to both the tracks as much as I used to, and it's because it can be a long, clunky process to sit here and go, okay, here's the bass part, here's the guitar part for the verse, and here's the bass part uh, for the chorus, rather for the verse, and here's the guitar part for the chorus, and here's the bass part for the chorus, and you sit there and you set some of this stuff up live, and it's just not it's not it doesn't bode well. You're kind of taking too long to create your loop, and you're focusing more on that than you are on the performance of the song. So I've taken to um, doing things a couple different ways. I have, for example, some songs are one part all the way through, and I'll just say, like, for example, "Sex on Fire" is E and C sharp minor. I will add a bass to that. That's pretty simple to set up from the beginning. It doesn't take too long. And I have several tracks like that in my set. I think "Watermelon Sugar," for example, and what else? "Tennessee Whiskey." And so I will have some of the simpler songs where I still do my guitar as bass and play through it that way. But I also have songs um, that I was doing as verse and chorus, and I was trying to do all that, and kind of all the things that I had just said kind of came to pass. You know what I mean? It was just kind of long. It was too clunky. It was falling out of sync at times. So I'm kind of doing that less than I used to, and instead, and I'm also leaving out the bass on those tracks, because sometimes the simplest is the best, and you don't need all that stuff. Sometimes it's a little bit too much. You run into things with levels and so on. Um, so uh, so here's what I do a lot of the times is, with a double track song, I set up my drums to um, turn them on and off independently. And basically, I think you would go in, and I'll do a separate video on this because I can't remember off the top of my head exactly how you set it up. But I know involves turning loop stop off so that your drums continue to play. So the way I have my pedals set up is I have track one usually for a verse, track two for a chorus, or for a second bar. But that's I think I'll talk about that in just a minute. But sometimes I have it, A set up for verse, B set up for chorus, um, and that's kind of it. And then my third button is I'll start, I'll stop. So if you hit it, it stops everything. But if you turn off the loop stop on your drums, the drums continue to play. So I've got another switch set up to operate my drums independently. And more often than not, um, unless I know I can get away with it, I will keep the drums going, and I will turn the drums on and off independently rather than um, having part of the all start all stop by turning the loop stop off. What does that enable me to do? That way, I can, if I have a song, for example, that has like a guitar solo, or maybe it sounds better with a second guitar part in the verse, for example, I will record one loop during the verse. When the chorus comes around, if it's a completely separate part, I will hit all start, all stop, and that will stop everything but the drums, and then I'll play the chorus along with the drums. And then when I want to kick back into the verse, I step on button one again, and I'm back into the verse. And that seems to be working a lot better. And I don't know that you necessarily need to layer all this stuff on all your tracks, right? It just doesn't. I I'm not feeling that, you know. So I will leave track one as a rhythm, kind of going along for maybe a part that I have to like loop over, like play a guitar solo or something like that. But for the most part, um, it's what verse is on. I'll start, and then I'll start, I'll stop, and continue to play along with the drums for the chorus. I have a bunch set up to do my variations and so on. And I think that's for me is the better way to go. And then you're spending more time focusing on your performance, and less time trying to think, okay, let's add this here, and it doesn't really always kind of seem to work real well. Um, Now, even as far as like using the second track for adding like a second part, like a shaker or something like that. If I want to bring it in and out, I have a MIDI switch set up to undo and redo track one, because I keep it kind of simple like that also. So I may have okay, again, Sex on Fire. There's that part that goes out of the chorus, goes da 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 da. You should know what I mean if you know the song. But I record the song, I record that part, and then I have a button set up to turn that part on and off for when I get to the chorus. Um, and I usually do that on one track. So anyway, that's what I'm finding out. Uh, is that the simplest is the best. Let's see. And let me see. Well, I'm kind of basing this on a Facebook post, so I want to make sure I've got everything here. Um, so I'll use the RC500 in three ways. Sometimes it's just a drum machine. Sometimes I'm just playing guitar along with a drum backing track, and that seems to suffice. I don't loop anything, in which case I use it as a drum machine. Other ways I use it where I use it with like multi-part songs, and I'm gravitating towards just looping as little as I could get away with. And you can still layer it and things like that, but I'm talking about like a verse, a chorus, a bridge. I don't know that it's really necessary to do all that. And trying to add bass in for all those three parts can be a pain in the neck. And another thing is if you record a bass on one part, you're almost kind of have to put a bass on the other parts, or it kind of totally drops out and it sounds empty. So I'm taking more to leaving the bass parts off of songs like that and adding them on some songs, but not all. And usually, when I say adding them onto some songs, it's usually simple songs with simple progressions, one part all the way through. Um, so I still have some set up to loop like that, with a verse, loop for the verse, loop for the chorus. But I'm more, and you can do it that way. You might have to do it that way for some songs. But I'm more into looping, for example, like playing along with the drums. I know there's going to be a solo in this song, so I'm going to record I'm going to loop that chord progression, and then I can either keep it going or I can kind of turn it off or maybe even layer some other kind of guitar parts up on top of that. So that's kind of cool. But when it comes to the chorus, I hit I'll start, I'll stop, turn everything off. I still have the drums going so I can play over the song. And then when I want to kick back into the verse, click back on button one again. And that seems to save like a lot of headaches and a lot of and a lot of trouble. So that's basically it. I just want to people like seem to like this post that I put up. So I want to make sure. Let me see here, and that I hit on everything that I had mentioned. Um, so it really a lot of times it comes down to experimentation. You know what I mean? Sometimes the verse chorus thing might work and it sticks and it's all good, and sometimes it just doesn't. Um, So rather, when I don't have to do it, when I don't have to record a verse loop and a chorus loop, I don't. And I do it in a way I already kind of detailed for you. So you might want to experiment around with it. And you don't need bass on everything. You know, if it makes it too clunky and the performance too long, and it's just like people are looking like, oh, why is this guy doing all, then by all means you can leave it off. I know, and I'm a huge fan of some guys who put bass on just about everything. And folks know I'm a fan of Matt Bolton, who's just fabulous at that. It's just crazy to watch the guy. But for most of us, I think it's the simpler way is the better, and that's pretty much it. Um, and let's see. So I guess it's really kind of part of what we would call the artistry of using the RC500. It's finding out what works and what doesn't on a song by song kind of basis, and how you can make it sound interesting and stuff like that, but still keep it simple for yourself so you're not driving yourself crazy. And I got to tell you, like maybe I don't know 4 or 5 months ago, I just started really getting enthralled with Katie Tunstall, watching her live performances, and that's basically what she does with her. She doesn't have a drum kit. Sometimes I've heard her use samples every once in a while, but usually it's just kind of her, tapping out a rhythm and maybe laying a vocal loop over that she turns on and off, and that's kind of it. She keeps it really minimal. And that allows her to put on a great show, which she does. I highly suggest checking her out live, just for as a one-person performer, but just as paying attention to how she uses the looper, which is sort of pretty minimal. And then becomes more about the arrangement and stuff. So anyway, that is my 2 cents. I wanted to put that out there for people who are been using this thing, maybe struggling with using this thing, trying to figure out different ways to do things. That's been what's worked for me. Any questions, feel free to post them, like, share, comment, and I will talk to you later. And feel free to subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon. And by the way, I have lots of performances on lots of looping performances on my page. So feel free to go check that out. You'll hear some stuff come off well, some stuff fall apart. And while I'm trying to figure all this out, been a process. Anyway, thanks. Like, subscribe, comment. See you later. Bye bye.